Well, hi everyone, I'm Nick and welcome back to Pop Sub Club. I'm here with a very special guest, the host of New Rockstars, a pretty awesome new YouTube channel that you may or may not have heard of, though probably did hear of if you're listening to this channel. Erik Voss. Erik, how are you doing today?
Doing good, Nick. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to have you. I know it's been a long time coming since we first met at Epic Universe, and it really is kind of like something I never thought I'd get to do. You know, I used to watch your videos over the years and your breakdowns and just kind of like, I feel like in a way it helped me be a better speculator on things and kind of pull different ideas. So, you know, this is awesome. Like, I'm so happy to have
Yeah, I'm happy to do this. For anybody watching this, myself and Brandon Barrick were lucky to be invited to this opening for Epic Universe in Orlando, and we met Nick along with some other friends of the press world on our way to Volcano Bay dinner that they were doing, and you go to these events sometimes and you don't know everybody, and it was just so cool to be able to meet you and then just
you.
be able to hang out. And it's rare that you get to make friends all along these things that you end up kind of staying in touch with to this
Yeah.
extent. So we were really grateful to be able to hang
Yeah.
out.
I can't agree more. That was my first big press thing, and I really, I guess to pull the Volcano Bay pun out of the water, if you will, I really was kind of thrown into the deep end of the world of press coverage and events and things like this, and just the opportunity to meet so many great people, yourself included, has been cool. And even cooler to be able to stay in contact and talk to you. And like you said, to this extent, something I never in my wildest dreams would have thought was possible. So, but in that time, I kind of, have been doing the show off and on, but since Epic, I've actually been inspired to do much, much more. And I've been doing so many episodes. Some I'm very excited to tell you about if you haven't seen already that I've been working on. But the main point of this episode is people to get to know you. And I'm curious, before New Rockstars, before the world of superheroes and pop culture and sci-fi and all the things that make your channel so awesome, where did you get your start? What was the journey from where you started your life, or I guess you started your interests, into what became New Rockstars?
Well, I studied journalism in college, and I went to the University of Florida, and I spent all my time just trying to figure out what makes a good story, whether you're writing an article for what our independent newspaper was in Gainesville, Florida, The Alligator, where I was a columnist for a time, writing really, really bad articles that our editor at the time just had to cut all the jokes out of, because I was at the time you cut all the funny out of it, now it doesn't make any sense. And then really she was like, those were supposed to be jokes. So I was a writer at that point, and then I would also be really involved with a big improv group that we had in Gainesville called Theater Strike Force. It's one of these stupid names. I feel like my whole career has been involved with really cool organizations that just have the dumbest names, and New Rockstars included. Yeah, it was we called it almost like an improv mafia, because there's 100 people involved, and you would see people around campus and be like, "Are you a member? Are you involved?" It was kind of like our attempt to have a fraternity, a co-ed fraternity that didn't have as many culty rituals, but had quite a few.
Hey,
But we
that's
would do improv and sketch and short films and video shorts. We were trying to be at the same time, the Upright Citizens Brigade and Lonely Island and all these other comedy organizations that we admired. And then I made a lot of friends through that organization and by doing journalism at Florida. And then in 2010, I moved out to Los Angeles. Originally, when I was at Florida, I was I'm going to go to law school, because I had an older sister who was going to law school. I'm like, that makes sense. I'll just get a journalism major to learn how to write and to research and that kind of thing. And then I did a summer internship with the state attorney in Jacksonville, and it freaked me out. I loved everyone who I worked with, but they were just so aggressive.
Yeah.
And a part of what we had to do as interns was track down worthless checks that people had written at supermarkets.
hmm
And they're like, that will be your project. You'll clear out all these old case files. And I would be so nervous calling people, and I would just look at it and I'm like, it's only $75. Can't we just let this one slide? And they're like, no. And then other people in our group who were like, we're gonna find everybody. I went home and I used my Facebook and I found them. And I was like,
Wow.
if we can't find them without Facebook, maybe we should just let them go. And I was like, I don't have the bloodthirst to snitch as much as everyone else does. So I know there's a lot to law beyond that, but I just like it. I was like, I'm not going to fit in with pre-law students. So my plan B was, I'll be a screenwriter. Or I'll just move out to Los Angeles and do improv, because I was such an improv nerd, and they had still have some really great improv theaters in Los Angeles. So it was either like Chicago or LA. I moved out to LA to be a screenwriter. I did improv for like 8 years. So that was like my whole origin story, was just doing improv. But like at the same time, I loved covering movies and television and analyzing media. And I started writing for a website that was at the time called SplitSider. Now it's been bought by Vulture, and it's part of the New York Magazine Vulture Media Group. And I was writing just a ton of articles for them, analyzing the world of comedy and the comedy industry. And I would do these SNL recaps and interview different comedians and directors and actors who I liked. And then at the same time, I had friends who were working in YouTube, and I was working a production job on a talk show, working with the news team on that talk show. That was like a CBS daytime show called The Talk. And I loved everyone who I worked with there, but I knew I wasn't like the best at that either. So I ended up leaving that job to go work with some friends in YouTube. And then at the time, that was New Media Rockstars. That was like a website covering YouTuber drama. And then I started writing videos for just the YouTube channel as like freelance. And we were trying to do everything that we could at the time, just to make anything that like kind of threaded the needle of what we were interested in, which is like popular films, which was the Marvel universe and Game of Thrones, and stuff that like the YouTube algorithm really liked. So there's a lot of experimentation, and there was a whole apparatus of new rock stars and new media rock stars that existed before I came on board. So I did not create the company. But over time, I mean, we can get into the whole history, the origin story of New Rockstars, but that was like my way into it. It's just someone who's trying to be a screenwriter, but also like finding ways to apply my journalism training to talk about films and television in a way that I didn't see reflected in what I read. And it was hard to find other writers for outlets like Entertainment Weekly. Like I love Jeff Jensen and his Lost recaps. And I was just trying to find more people like him, and it was hard to find them. So I was like, I feel like there's a void. Now in 2025, I don't think there's a void. I think there's a lot of great podcasts and YouTubers and people who write for different outlets and independent journalists who have their newsletters. And I think we have a robust world of different writers and amazing writers and podcasters. But I just didn't see that back in 2010.
It's kind of so funny, like 2010 doesn't feel like it was so long ago, but in the landscape of this medium, it really feels like it was such a long time ago. And it's funny, talking about your history to getting to New Rockstars. So are you a Florida native?
I can't say I'm a native. I was a Navy brat. So I was born in Rhode Island, and then my family moved up and down the East Coast. And then we ended up settling in Jacksonville, Florida. And that's where I lived most of my childhood.
Got you. I was curious because I was actually born and raised in Ocala and moved to Orlando after I graduated. So I was like, hey, UF, I've driven past that a million times growing up. Yeah. But when I was a kid and I got into college, I remember deep down, I think I always knew I wanted to write, but I also knew that that's not something that always paid the bills. And so I had to almost like lie to myself. And I was in a similar job of not similar in terms of law, but similar in terms of calling, because I had to do collections for like a hospital. And I was actually telling my manager this earlier today. I didn't know I had anxiety, like officially, until that job, because the whole job is just making calls, being like, where's my money? And I didn't want to be that person. So it was, the most trying thing in the world. So I understand like at least a little bit what you mean when you say like having to call people to ask them for money and you're like, can we just like, times are tough. It's hard out there. Let's let it slide. I get that entirely. But with new rock stars and analyzing and things of that nature, you're kind of like almost a pioneer in that field in many respects. And I'm kind of curious, like your history in kind of not necessarily developing, but really shining a light on this idea of analysis and exploring like hidden details and really showing that it's something worth talking about and people can get engaged and should get engaged with. Like, how did that idea spawn? Like, was it just kind of a natural progression, or did you ever like wake up one day and go, oh, this is a cool angle to run?
At some point when I was in middle school, my parents' cable package shifted in Jacksonville, where we suddenly now got the Sundance Channel and IFC in our cable subscription. I think we always had Turner Classic Movies, but I would always just go back and forth among those channels on any time I could get in front of the TV.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up as a kid who watched The Simpsons, and I realized as I started to make more friends who also watched The Simpsons that there was a whole layer of jokes there that I didn't get because
Yeah.
I hadn't seen Citizen Kane or I hadn't seen Apocalypse Now. And so once I started to make friends who were pointing out like, oh, that's like a whole thing. I would find these titles on Sundance Channel, on IFC and Turner Classic Movies. And I realized like once I got to high school, I was like one of the only friends I had who actually did that. But my brother and I really bonded hard over this because I remember like at some point he was on his way out because he had actual friends, and he was on his way out the door on like a Friday night, and we had finished watching one movie and he's like, hey, next is this movie called Pulp Fiction. And I was like, what's Pulp Fiction? He's like, you should watch that. I was like 11 and I was like, cool. So I watched it, and I had never seen a movie do that before. Like be pulled out of sequence like that. And it all kind of connected, and characters who you see die in the middle of the movie are alive again later. And I became obsessed with that. And I found the script, the PDF script of it, and I printed it out and I read everything that I could. And I discovered IMDb, and I became a huge Quentin Tarantino film nerd. I became a huge Bond film nerd. Like my way into all of this, it's weird. A lot of people assume that I grew up reading comic books, and I didn't. Like, and part of that is because I was a 90s kid, and Marvel comics in the 90s were weird. They were weird. All my friends' older brothers who had comics, they were like showing me, and it was like Rob Liefeld X-Force designs, and it was like Venom and Carnage stuff. And it didn't at all reflect like what I grew up with, which was like the X-Men animated series and the Spider-Man animated series and the Batman animated series. Like those were everything to me as a kid. And I just thought comic books were like a weird kind of like, oh, we moved away from this to something better, to cartoons that I watched on Fox Kids in the morning. So I didn't read comic books until later. It wasn't until I was a bit older in middle school and in high school, and comics started to get, I don't want to diss 90s comics, but like the death of Superman was like the big thing that happened in the early 90s in DC. And that sucked. Like I didn't want to think of Superman as dead. I didn't like the art style of comics in the 90s. It was just harder for me to find, like the new releases were not as fun as like, I wish I had grown up in the 80s when you had like Chris Claremont and John Byrne who were like controlling the X-Men narratives. Like I was now in like this weird Bronze Age, and I wasn't digging it. But then in 2001 you had like the Ultimates come out. You had Miles Morales. You had like the art style started to get really good. Brian Michael Bendis was now controlling a lot of this stuff, and I loved it. So that's when I started to read comics when I was a bit older. But it was like finding these film franchises and really geeking out over the 007 franchise, over Tarantino films. I really love the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. I love the Tim Burton Batman films. The early X-Men films, like I went crazy over these. Star Wars was a huge part of my childhood. Like core memories were definitely formed in 1997 when they re-released the three original films.
Yeah.
I got so pumped for that. And then when Phantom Menace happened, it was like a huge part of my life. So I really got into the Star Wars franchise when I was in middle school. I bought all the visual dictionaries. Like I would save up my birthday money to buy the visual dictionaries.
Those are awesome.
Yeah. And I realized like, whoa, every character in this has a name and a backstory. Like every prop that's on their belt, like every part of their costume has some kind of like lore to it. So
Hmm.
I memorized all that stuff. Um, yeah, so that's when I got into all of these things. And then when I in high school got really into Lost. So that started when I was a junior, I think, in high school,
Hmm.
2004. I went ape shit for Lost. Like that was kind of like new pop media that was coming out that was referencing a lot of the nerdy stuff that I was into in high school, from like political philosophy and like Lewis Carroll mythology. Um, yeah, like I Wizard of Oz references, like all these things that I now knew from
Yeah.
watching Turner Classic Movies. I now started to get the references of it, and I love seeing it be re-puzzled together
Hmm.
in a new like mystery box show. I got really into J.J. Abrams as a creator. Like he was one TV producer when I saw his name in the credits. I was like, oh, he's the guy who
Yeah.
also like did Alias, and he also did Felicity, and he's doing Mission Impossible 3, and then he's going to be doing Star Trek. I mean, that was later on, but I
Hmm.
got really into like his creative philosophy. I love seeing like connection. I started to like figure out how Hollywood worked at that point, like what a director was, what a TV producer was, what a pilot was.
Yeah.
Um, and then in college is where I like made these lifelong friends that like we would watch Lost together and have Lost watching parties. And what we would do is we would watch an episode of Lost, or we were now like in season 5 of it or something like that, and we had other friends who wanted to be caught up, so we would rewatch it and rewatch it. Every time we'd have a new friend, we would rewatch it all together again, and then
Yeah.
we would hang out for hours and just talk about each episode and talk about the lore of it, and like pause it. And we would hang out in the journalism building at UF and like stay after hours because we knew how to like jam the door to sneak in there. And we would play it from the projector screen in a lecture hall and just like sit there as like our own private movie theater. And we would watch the episode and then stay up till like 3 in the morning just talking about it. Um, so yeah, that was kind of like the primordial ooze of everything that I do now at New Rockstars.
That's awesome. It's, for starters, that's some great memories to be made with Lost. And second, it's kind of funny how Lost almost brought the world of pop culture into a more mainstream place. Like of
Yeah,
all the shows in the world, like it's very science fiction, but it doesn't have the cape aspect. There's not any intense choreographed action. It's just a good show that had some small sci-fi elements and a big mystery, and it pulled people of all types into the fold. So we're like, it's at Comic-Con, and all of a sudden it brings like Buffy into the conversation more, and then next thing you know, Heroes is coming. It did so
yeah,
much. Um,
yeah, yeah.
no, go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I think what it wasn't like the best show ever made, and I even think like Damon Lindelof has made better shows since Lost. I
Yeah,
think The Leftovers is a better show. I think his Watchmen series is a better show. Maybe even Lanterns will be a better show. But what it did, and I mean, it was trying to do Twin Peaks in some
mhm,
ways, have this kind of like recurring mystery with some like cosmic mythology. But what it did really well, and part of it was like it was the first big show like this in the social media age, is it brought nerds of a certain type together online.
yeah,
Um, and I mentioned Jeff Jensen before, but he really was like an inspiring figure to me, who was really like a pillar of that community with his Entertainment Weekly recaps.
mhm,
Um, like the comment sections under those articles was where I lived much of my life. And I think New Rock Stars, I don't think would exist without Lost bringing all of that online. And
mhm.
not just New Rock Stars. I think there's a whole ecosystem of movie and TV reviewers, of podcasters, of YouTubers, of just article writers that also were there in those early years. And the fact that we're all online at that time was a big part of that.
Absolutely. And even now at my job, Lost is still talked about ad nauseum.
Yeah.
Like, Lost is forever in the conversation. I agree. I think it definitely was the foundation for so much. It's funny, you mentioned Bond, and I was kind of the same as you in many respects of like what I grew up on. I loved superheroes. I didn't start like actively reading comics until I was teenager, maybe college age. I picked up some here and there, but my thing was the cartoons and the movies. But I did grow up on a lot of older movies, and my dad was a big James Bond fan, is a big James Bond fan still. And I was curious, what's your favorite Bond movie? Like, do you have maybe a favorite era or anything?
I mean, I grew up with the Pierce Brosnan era, which was kind of a mixed bag. I think Pierce Brosnan was a really good Bond for the most part. Like, what's so weird is like my interest in Bond kind of like peaked when Die Another Day came out, and that's not a good movie. It's pretty bad. But like I loved it when it came out, and I saw it multiple times in the theater. I think my favorite Bond film, I really like GoldenEye. I love Sean Bean. I think Casino Royale might be like what many people consider to be the best, if not that, Skyfall. But it's kind of hard. I think I have recency bias because they are like the recent era of the Bond movies that do reflect like, they're like the post-Bourne Bonds, like without Paul Greengrass and the Bourne trilogy, you wouldn't have the Daniel Craig Bond.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I love Casino Royale. I love Skyfall. I grew up towards the tail end of the Pierce Brosnan era. Like, I like to say when I was fully downloaded into the world, it was probably around Die Another Day. So that was arguably my first Bond movie. My dad's a big Sean Connery fan, so I watched a lot of those. My favorite probably is Thunderball in that respect.
Yeah,
but
Thunderball's good. Thunderball is like all the underwater stuff and the jetpack stuff of Thunderball kind of blew my mind. Like, I'm telling you, I spent so much time watching cable TV during my middle school years and just watching the Spike TV marathons. They would, like, during the summer, just have every Bond movie, and I would sit and just watch all of them.
I remember those. Oh, wow. That's a core memory. It's funny, though, you mentioned the underwater scenes. I actually, my mom's stepdad worked with the guy who did the underwater scenes, like filmed them.
Ooh.
Yeah, and he, I believe he worked on Thunderball, and then his son worked on like Jaws the Revenge. I think there's like a whole family. And the only reason that even came back onto my radar in my family was because my dad, he was a paramedic for almost 20 years, and then he works in the cath lab, and he met before he passed, he met the guy that knew my step grandfather and my grandmother and got to talk to them. And it was so cool because like there were stories between him and Sean Connery and all of these things surrounding Thunderball. So it was pretty awesome, like seeing like all of that connect and knowing that in a weird kind of way, like Thunderball is a little close to my family, but
it's really cool.
Yeah, it was. I wished I had gotten the chance to talk to him before he passed, but I'm lucky that my dad did because my dad is such an old movie nut. He loves his Charles Bronson movies. He loves his old war movies. So, it's cool to even hear it through him. But you said you grew up on Turner Classic Movies and and you just found all these connections from all these classics. What's your favorite movie? Like, is it a classic or is it Pulp Fiction? Like, what's your favorite movie of all time?
Alien. Alien is my favorite movie. I think it's a perfect film. I think there's maybe like, I don't know, 25 to 30 movies that I've seen that I consider to be perfect films. Okay. And it's like perfect for what they set out to do and perfect for like how influential they were to cinema. Like, these are like, I don't know, 25 to 30 films that I consider to be films that like saved the art form. Like, or they extended its lifespan. I don't know if cinema will always exist, but like these movies made cinema matter.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think Alien's at the top of the list for me in that its production design, its storytelling, its acting, its sci-fi elements, the horror elements are just so perfectly executed on a scale that we have not seen any other film do. Some other films have gotten close. I think John Carpenter's The Thing is up there.
Ooh, that's yes.
I think like Pulp Fiction is up there too. It's just like for my nerdy interests, like Alien is really, it's just like, yes, like I will feast on Alien. I watch it at least once a year. Um, and it's a movie that I will always discover new things about it. It's a movie that will never look dated
Yeah,
because of the commitment that they made to interesting production design. And I love that they get H.R. Giger's weird brain onto every surface that they can. Ron Cobb's
absolutely.
production design. He invented semiotic standard as like a color guard that you see on sci-fi production designs and everything.
Hmm.
Um, Everyone is desperate to try to recapture the perfect synthesis that was the xenomorph production design. And
Yeah,
it wasn't just the xenomorph, it was like four different stages of a life cycle, and they
you're right.
created four distinct but natural designs, and we just haven't seen any other movie do that well.
You're right. I feel the same way about Jaws. Jaws is my favorite, and every time I watch it, I always find new things. But Alien is one that I wish people said more because I I love the Alien franchise. I specifically love Alien and Aliens. And even when I saw Alien Romulus, I was impressed at how it managed to kind of take the things that made Alien great and then make us more disturbed in other directions without trying to overshadow the original.
Yeah.
And I think Alien is just such an inspiring sci-fi movie. I mean, like you said, the xenomorph alone, terrifying. It still terrifies me. I play the game all the time, and it is the one movie monster I think genuinely petrifies me.
It's super creepy. Jaws is on my Mount Rushmore as well.
Mm.
For many stretches of my life, I'll always say Jaws is like my favorite film, and
Hmm.
it's in my top three or four.
Yeah.
My dad and I shared a deep connection to Jaws. To me, it's like a very, very important film to
Hmm.
my history and my family. Um, the reason why I always go to Alien is because, like, especially with any younger viewers, which now a lot of my viewers are younger than me, is that Jaws is another one of these movies that everyone watches every summer, but
Yeah.
like the younger generation, frustratingly, will snicker at certain parts of it. They'll look at Bruce, the mechanical shark, and say it looks kind of fake. There's certain like some jokes in it, or it's just like three grizzled old men who are kind of like trying to. I mean, I love all these things about it. These are not flaws,
Yeah.
but I just
Exactly.
think like the younger generations will kind of roll their eyes at it, and I'm kind of like, okay, fine, if that's your opinion, great. Um, Alien is a movie that you put on and it shuts everyone up.
You're
Like
right.
no one, you can't impeach that film. Like
Hmm.
the first watch of Alien, you don't need any kind of explanation before you put Alien on. You can just put it on and say nothing,
Yeah.
and anybody, no matter how old they are, who they are, what their background is, will watch that and be like, they'll all have the same first reaction to it.
It's funny you say that because like when you watch like because we see these movies they've kind of been especially for like us. I imagine you had such a movie oriented upbringing as well. Alien's always been there. But when you like put it on and you take yourself out of what you know and you just imagine, okay, I don't know what Alien is and I'm going to put it on. You don't know what that movie truly is until the xenomorph comes out of his chest. And then at that
Yeah,
point, you're in so deep, you don't know what to do. And
right.
that's the best part is I love a movie, especially like Alien, where no matter how classic it is, when you take yourself out of knowing what it is and just watch it as what it is intended, it shocks you even still. And I
Yeah,
think that that's such a good movie.
I think there's like comparing a movie like Jaws, yes, there is a natural conflict at the heart of Jaws of a you have man versus society and man versus beast.
Yep.
And then how many times have we seen the mayor of Amity Island memed,
Yes.
with real world crises?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that's part of the reason why the movie's so universal and timeless.
Hmm.
But I think the reason why Alien gets under our skin is there's a very specific fear that Alien builds the whole movie around. And it's an experience we all have gone through. And that experience is this: you're about to go to bed, you get the covers up to your chest, you reach to turn off the light, and you look across the room, and you see a spider scuttle under your bed. And you cannot sleep that night. and the light will never go off now. And I think Alien, that's what Alien is. And we've all had that happen. And we've all had that feeling like that constant paranoia and that fear of bugs that seem small and harmless, but who knows? It's the fear of the unknown is what it boils down to.
Mm-hmm.
But it's such a specific visceral experience that we've all gone through. And I think Alien exploits that to the nth degree.
Yeah, I hate that you brought up that spider one specifically, because almost verbatim, that has happened to me.
Yeah, it happened to me like 2 days ago.
Oh, I am such an arachnophobe. I don't even like watching Arachnophobia. Like I hate spiders so much. So that one specifically, I'm just like, oh, you're right. It is just a bug is loose and you can't find it, and that's it. That's so terrifying. But yeah, I mean, Alien is such an awesome movie, and I feel like another one that kind of does it, ironically, and not in the same sense of fear, but in the same sense of shifting it on the viewer, is Predator. I'm a big Alien and Predator fan, but I love how that movie is a macho action 80s movie with all of the best actors, but it's actually a horror movie in disguise where the toughest guys are the weakest guys in the situation. I don't know how they got that idea out of their heads, but it was such an inspired idea, and at the great time of like challenging the Alien franchise and doing something different to the point where now we're like, when are they getting back together? Like, that's so cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
it's so crazy now to be in an era where like we have had good Alien movies since Romulus. I think the follow-up to Romulus is going to be good too.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to have Predator Badlands that I think is going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And like Disney's going to force these two back together. It's like they're going to try to redo Alien versus Predator and Alien versus Predator Requiem and do it in a way that we like.
Yeah.
And I guess it's going to work. I would have considered like that crossover dead. Like that was just a weird thing that happened in the aughts, and let's never try that again. And I don't know. I think it could work. I mean, seeing a xenomorph skull in the trailer for Predator Badlands, I was like, all right, let them cook.
Literally, let them cook. I feel that. Especially Badlands looks like so. I feel like we're so not blinded, but we're so distracted by the nostalgia and the excitement of these franchises coming back that I feel like we're being spoon-fed lore to justify a crossover, and we don't even realize until it happens. So
yeah, I think what it is like these franchises are now starting to be wrestled away from the old men who are now old men who were the revolutionaries back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
And like Alien was still very much in the hands of Ridley Scott. Like he did Prometheus, he did Alien Covenant. And I think he's still really good. I think I'll watch every movie Ridley Scott makes.
Yeah.
Because it's always a big swing. But you needed the Fede Alvarez to come in there who grew up loving Alien and Aliens and is a good director who proves himself. Star Wars went through a similar thing. You had George Lucas who still wanted control over it. And I think I like most of what he did with the prequels. But we needed the second generation of good directors. And I think J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson were that. But I still think overall narrative control, it wasn't agreed upon what the core themes of that sequel trilogy would be. And I think J.J. Abrams set up a lot of great ideas that Rian Johnson had no interest in my opinion, introduced even cooler ideas in The Last Jedi. Ideas that J.J. Abrams, once again, had no interest in and just ignored for The Rise of Skywalker. And I think they should have let one creative mind have control over all of those films. And for better or worse, we would have got a better result. Now Star Wars is in this weird place where they've found a Lucasfilm artist who is working on all the prequels, Dave Filoni, take creative control. And he has not proven himself to me yet as a great director. So that's why I'm a little worried about the future of Star Wars. Is like, I don't know if there's someone at the helm other than Kathleen Kennedy, someone who is a super producer, who is another one of these like top 10 most important people in this industry's history. But she has not directed a film, and she needs to have a good director who is like in the trenches. So I think right now DC Studios is in a very good place because James Gunn is a proven good director.
Absolutely.
And he knows what it takes to make a good film in 2025 and beyond. And Star Wars doesn't have that right now, so I'm a little worried.
Yeah, I can understand that completely. And as far as what you said with like Ryan Johnson introducing cooler ideas, I am honestly right there with you. I have always really liked the concepts that were tossed at The Last Jedi and the idea of what if there is no Sith and no Jedi and just let's try something different. I was always on board with that. So it was, to me, it was a shame to see those ideas not be fully fledged out. But I like now, I like, and I'm also nervous now because Andor has proven that what happens when you take different ideas and a different approach to this universe and how compelling it can be, to the point that I'm worried people might see like Filoni stuff and feel like it's already old hat when
Yeah.
there's a place for his stuff as well. And like you said, as far as being proven as a director, Mandalorian and Grogu is probably one of the most demanding upcoming Star Wars movies. It's going to ask a lot from its fans. It's like, have you seen these 3 seasons? Have you seen Ahsoka? Have you seen
Yeah.
Rebels? Like, it's definitely going to be risky, which, you know, in talking about this now, I'm kind of realizing like, oh my God, this is going to be a lot.
Yeah. I feel like that movie's been announced for 4 years. Like
Yeah.
I feel like The Mandalorian was like a product of like 5 years ago. So it's weird that we're not going to see a movie until like almost a year from now. Like in my mind, the story of The Mandalorian has been done as of spring 2023,
Fair enough.
like which was over 2 years ago. So it
Yeah.
just feels weird. I don't feel like we're ramping up into anything. I'll go watch this movie. Hell, there was a trailer that came out at Celebration back in April that I saw like a bootleg version of that looked pretty cool. But I mean, they didn't release that to the public, which is weird. Like, if you
Yeah.
want people to stay invested in this, like, I don't know what's going on. All I know is that I loved Andor, and that we'll probably never see something as good as Andor ever again.
You know, it
And
makes
I
me
don't know
sad.
what to make of that. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I still think about how chilling the Gorman massacre was, and
yeah,
I'm just like, my God, that was what a show! Like, my
yeah,
Lord, I don't know. You're right. I don't think we'll ever get something like that again because how can you? It just kind of like for everyone who was like the Empire's not scary. It's just guys you can't aim. And you put on Andor, and
yeah,
all of a sudden those get quiet, and it's like that. That's why that show is so good at doing that.
yeah. Um, yeah, I'm sorry. I talk for a long time. Uh, Something about me is I'm the youngest of five,
Mhm.
and it's hard to get a word in. When I was growing up, it was so hard to get a word into my family, and I feel like if I stop talking, it will be another 30 minutes before I can start talking again. So I have this kind of like fear and anxiety that like I have to get everything in when I start talking, and I just go on and on and on. And I never shut up. So I'm sorry for like fitting in 8 answers into one answer.
No, I love it because I am on the opposite spectrum of that, of where I like things so much that a percentage of people I know aren't as into, to the point where I feel like I have to say everything because if I stop, the subject's going to change and they're never going to come back to what I was talking about. So I guess in that respect, I apologize if I have also been talking too much because
No,
I
you've been doing good, Nick.
okay. Yeah, well, likewise for you. I don't feel like you're talking too much or answering too many in one. I prefer this, to be completely honest. So no worries on my end at all. Now that said, moving forward into like the whole space of new rock stars and the career that you have built on YouTube, it's something that, you know, I myself with this show am slowly trying to put these interviews out on YouTube for a visual component. And even then, I've been a YouTube coded person from childhood. I know the drill. I understand the algorithms, and I'm just curious. You know, you guys have been doing this for so long. What are some of the challenges that you have had to face in trying to, you know, whether it be algorithms or SEO or trends or just making sure monetization is still in play with how YouTube acts? Like, what are some challenges that you've had to go through?
It is all of the things you mentioned are challenges that we run into. I think trying to make content for YouTube is has never been easier, right? It's never been easier to just shoot something and upload something and start to build an audience for it.
Yeah,
Making a successful career out of being a YouTuber and a content creator is just getting harder and harder. And part of that is saturation.
Hmm.
There's just it's so hard for new, smaller channels to get discovered, just because the algorithm is only going to promote stuff that is like a sure bet.
Yeah.
And you can even make like the perfect thumbnail and make the perfect piece of content, like the best edited video. And it's so hard for people to even find it by searching for it in the search bar. You can use the exact title, and sometimes it'll be buried under like 8 other things.
Yeah.
There's so many of these channels that are just using AI and making so many videos, like releasing like 20 videos a day
Yeah.
that were all crafted by using large language models, by using video generators, asset generators. And I only see one tip of that iceberg, from making the kind of content New Stars makes of like, you know, trailer breakdowns and movie reactions and reviews and Easter egg videos and theory videos. Now you can, if you look for a trailer for something or a trailer breakdown, of the top 8 search results that you get, like 4 of them will be a fake trailer that has
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you know, Tom Holland with like Reed Richards, and they've never been in a movie together, but it
Don't get me
looks like
started on screen culture.
yeah. I mean, YouTube is starting to get better at like cracking down on that kind of thing, but
Hmm.
there's just so many that are out there that it's just going to be hard. I think it's hard to break in to doing movie analysis content right now.
Mm.
But there's also a lot of great creators. There's a lot of really, really good outlets that are out there. And you know, I have seen some break in, and the ones that break in, like it's hard to say just follow New Rockstars model, because like we don't have a model. Like
Yeah.
we were a website that had a small YouTube channel that was making all, like you can go back and look at like oldest New Rockstars videos, and the first like 200 of them are weird. It's like interviews with other YouTubers and musicians. It's like I don't know why we haven't made those videos private. I guess there's still some views that are coming in, so they're like, might as well keep them public. There's like interviews, there's like weird prank videos that, you know, are were New Rock Stars. There's like social experiment videos, and then at some point there's like these short 3-minute news recaps of like trending news. And then at some point it shifted into doing like longer trailer breakdowns. And part of that is that YouTube's algorithm changed over that time.
Hmm.
But during all that time, New Rock Stars was still gaining subscribers. So when I came on board in like 2015, we had about a 500,000. And
Okay.
so I don't even know how to tell people to get up to that point,
Yeah.
because I don't know how New Rockstars got that 500,000 subscribers. Um, like it was just like a swing and a miss here, a swing and a hit there, and then but then from there on, we were just consistent, and I think that's what helped us grow from there.
Hmm.
Is I think having uh, a consistent, if you're going to have one host or a group of hosts, staying consistent with that and just being clear with your viewers. Um, Honestly, like I hate it, but I think YouTube channels grow when there's like a clear expectation of what format you're doing and what IP you're talking about, like what your vertical is, whether it's lifestyle content, vlogging,
Yeah.
sports analysis, food related content, and just staying consistent, being
Mm.
open to experiment with trying something new, trying a different thumbnail design, trying a different intro to your video, experimenting with video length, uh, trying to encourage people to watch your way through the video. I mean, Mr. Beast is like, you know, everyone looks at him, but he did discover through trial and error something that worked.
Yeah.
And there is, you can watch all of his videos and kind of like look at the 10 things he does in in every video he makes. I don't think trying to replicate what he does is great advice, because he can only
It's,
make these videos because he has millions of dollars to invest in the production. But figuring out what those 10 things are for your channel, and then being willing, like, you know, in the Bear, they call them non-negotiables that they write on the inside of a pizza
Hmm.
box, like figuring out what your non-negotiables are and things that you love to see in every piece of content. Um, and making that a checklist that you try to do in every video. Also, things that are deliverable by you, because I think the biggest challenge now that we're like a business, we're a very small business. We have fewer than 10 employees in New Rockstars in 2025.
Mm.
Is burnout. Like burnout is a very easy black hole that you can get sucked into because like there's no limit on how much content you can make. It's not like YouTube's like you're allowed to make one upload a day. It's like more news can come out and you want to jump on it and cover it. And it's easy to lose yourself in it, especially if you're editing your own content.
Absolutely.
Um, it can be very lonely, doing that. And I think you have to have a good work-life balance. You have to set limits for yourself. Um, and I think it's kind of like for the people I know who have the hustle and the grind, who have started from scratch, basically,
Yeah.
either because they had to leave whatever outlet or job they were at and start from scratch. The ones who have done well, um, they have treated it like kind of like a workout, like they're training up for a marathon or something like that. Um, and they jump on opportunities when they can, but they don't say yes to everything.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have those limits for yourself, because otherwise you will lose yourself doing it. Now it's hard because I also have seen some people who have lost them. So I've been through phases of my career where I've just poured everything, everything. I mean, even like, people think I'm bullshitting them when I say that I've worked 100 hours in a week here at New Rockstars. I've spent many weeks of 2025 where I've spent 100 hours. Like I'm not, yes, I put in, I get into the office at 8 and I leave at 5. But then after I go home, after my kid goes to bed, and sometimes my wife goes to bed, I'll go back to work and I'll work another 2 to 3 hours. While Survivor is on, I will be doing admin work. And that's not all the time, but there are weeks when I do that.
Yeah.
Crazy weeks when I do that. So, yeah, it's hard to set those limits for yourself. And I don't think like there aren't there we need good therapists for content creators
Yeah.
and podcasters and YouTubers. And I don't, in my experience, there aren't enough therapists out there who know the difficulty of being a content creator.
No, I think you're right. I mean, it's a what's the right word, fledgling, I guess would be the right word. It's like a fledgling market and a topic, and it's something that people don't know a lot about. They see content creation and they see what's posted. They don't see what goes into everything else. And I mean, I myself, I don't consider myself a content creator, though I do this show and then I also work and I do interviews from there and I do things to try and get out there. I've seen the horrors of the algorithm. I'm experiencing it now, even with this podcast. But that's a fraction of what, like the smallest fraction compared to what you do. And it's a very trying job, like, especially when you get into your workflow. And I'm sure you probably feel the same way when you see like a news thing or an idea pops into your head. All of a sudden you're like, I have to do something with this idea, or I like can't do the next thing. And it's stuff like that I agree. I think that there needs to be a space, or at least people who can understand and talk to others about how difficult this type of stuff can be. Like, just because it's not your average job doesn't mean it's anything less of a job. And when you have that much freedom of movement, it's so hard to tell yourself when it's time to like reel it back a little bit, because there's so much opportunity. And because of how YouTube operates, there's that urge to have to keep up or something will change again. And it's a lot of stress for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And like there's just all kinds of dynamics when you're working for a news outlet, like a lot of our job here at New Rockstars reminds me of like, I don't know, what it feels like working in the Daily Planet and these news meetings, and you're trying to jump on stuff quickly and you don't want to make an ass of yourself,
Yeah.
But it's also like, because our hosts, like every video we make needs to in some part be a labor of love by the host who's writing and shooting it.
Absolutely.
Like it's also a personal process as well that Jessica and myself, like we pour our hearts into every video we make, and we don't want to make a video that just feels like an assignment or
Yeah.
just feels like, you know, this is popular, so I guess I should figure out what this thing is and make a video about it. Like, you know, we, in some ways at New Rockstars have a luxury that, you know, if we worked at like a big outlet like IGN, we would have to do that. We would have to like get a freelancer in here to like write a recap of something. But New Rockstars, we just have like a different kind of output where we make usually one video a day, and we stick to the franchises like Marvel, DC, Star Wars, you know, Fallout, Rick and Morty. I guess a lot of people are like, why have we stopped covering Rick and Morty? Oh no, we're gonna be covering Rick and Morty season 8. We just we're doing it as one big video. We try to cover stuff that like we are keeping up with and we know. But it also, because like our faces are on everything we make, it's a blessing and a curse that it now makes us like known, like we have followings for covering this stuff, but there's also a lot of expectations that come with that.
Yeah.
And we don't want to let people down. You know, we don't, we want to live up to the reputations that we have as being authorities on these subjects.
Absolutely. Well, I can tell you both as a viewer and also just from seeing things on even Reddit, you guys uphold all of your standards wonderfully, because I remember even like when Ironheart dropped and just kind of going through my usual rounds on Reddit, seeing my Marvel stuff that I follow, and the minute that Mephisto was a topic, everyone was like talking about how happy you must be over Mephisto finally being here, and like all of the speculation and the years of wondering have paid off. Like, I have never heard a lick of bad about how you guys do things in the least. It's always, if anything, the community is there, even outside of the New Rockstars, like say subreddit. Like everyone is just, there's a community to it that feels so alive even outside of that, and it's nice. You know, I think you guys are doing something so special with that, and I think it's continuing to pay off because, man, that's got to be, I think that's pretty cool. Like when people are just people are equating something that has happened in the MCU with just your persistence in knowing this is going to happen. I think that's awesome.
It was a nice feeling. I wasn't like jumping up and down in my seat. Like, I think if people watch movies and TV with me, I'm not annoying to watch these things with. If anything, I might be like, that thing is a callback to this thing. But I'm not like screaming. But with the Mephisto thing, it was like a very weird thing. A lot of people were very, very kind, and I thought a lot of people were going to be very mean to me when that happened, that like I willed this stupid thing into existence. I think a lot of us saw the signs, and I think what it was when we were watching WandaVision and a lot of these other shows where there seemed to be like devil clues is, you know, people who watched Lost, I feel like had that same kind of viewing experience.
Yeah.
It was we were watching a mystery box show week to week, thinking something would happen, and sometimes their theories are wrong, and that's okay. And I think when he did show up in Ironheart, all those WandaVision watchers and Agatha watchers and people who were watching Lost and other mystery box shows, it felt like vindication of that communal experience that we all were part of. And so it felt really good when that happened, because it really felt like some big thing happened in Lost that we all kind of thought might happen. You know, you don't get that a lot in TV shows anymore. Or when shows get released on streaming. So yeah, that next day, it kind of reminded me of who the true believers are. And I don't see that most days. As a content creator, most of the time, I just have people yelling at me for some reason or another, or people asking why our videos are taking so long, or saying, hey, you know, you missed this. And that tends to be the feedback I see. But when I'm out in the world and I'm at Trader Joe's and I just run into people, like it's just so nice, because like I realize, I think a lot of people just see New Rockstars as like the people who overdo the assignment, and they're really grateful that we have people who like spend so long researching something, and are working so hard to try to find everything that we can, or sometimes overthink things for other people. I think they're grateful to have like the nerd in their study group who's going to do all the background research.
Oh yeah, I mean, as the nerd in I'm friends with a lot of nerds, but I'm the one that likes to do exactly that as well. And I understand it. I think that, you know, when it comes to the internet space, the smallest groups have the loudest megaphones. But when you step out into the real world, those are the ones that matter. And those are the ones that you should definitely always take to heart. I mean, a part of the thing I love to do on this show is to remind you guys, you know, what y'all do is special. And it's awesome. And I mean, like, it's to the point where, like, even for myself, when they dropped the Ironheart trailer, the second one, and they were talking about, like, bringing Natalie back and all of this stuff, I remember posting a story where I'm like, I bet you right now Mephisto's going to show up and bargain over Natalie, and that's what's going to happen. And then when it happened, I was like, when I get the chance to talk to Erik, I have to tell him that, because that was like my biggest claim of like all of the Marvel things I've ever watched and speculated. That was my favorite claim. And I was like, I got to tell him, because I was so proud of that one. But
yeah, that's a good call. I had just heard some casting rumors that he was going to show up, but I was just like, I don't know how this is going to work. And then I watched the first 3 episodes and I'm like, oh, I kind of get the themes of it. Like I get the themes of like selling your soul for your ambition. And it felt really organic in a cool way, so that it didn't feel like a dumb glove shido showing up at the end. It felt like he is the natural man behind the curtain of this story. And I mean, my take is that, like, in the MCU, AI was a gift to humanity by Mephisto. Like, all of AI is like a Mephisto gift. Like, I like that idea that he wants to enable people with like this technological shortcut that works almost like magic. And allows you to create something that works very well for what you need. But you can tell there's some kind of soullessness to it. I think that is just like a perfect commentary of what Mephisto wants the world to revolve around.
I like that. And, you know, not to nerd out for too much, but I like the idea that when you say that, because then I think back to Jarvis. I'm like, well, that was always kind of more of a virtual assistant. And then you think of Ultron, and that was brought to life by the Mind Stone. So all of these instances we've seen of AI before aren't inherently tied to like Mephisto, thus making it so when it does happen, it would feel even more like that, because all of these outside influences came, or maybe it wasn't quite there just yet. And now I feel like, especially with how the Natalie situation has been shown, because there has to be a degree of magic and mysticism to brainwaves creating someone so perfectly on the dot. I think that theory has a lot of legs, and I kind of, even if it doesn't get confirmed, I know as a fan, I'm going to be watching with that in my mind, because it just enhances the experience. And I think in the world we live in today, those little things that kind of enhance the overall experience of what we watch is so important, because it, you know, we're all here to have fun. And, you know, people get mad online. That's what it's all about, is just having a good time, talking about what we love with friends. And those are the little things that make it awesome, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely. Now I know we're a little smidge over the hour. I apologize for that. I didn't want to keep you too long, but I had one more question just before closing out. Where do you want to see New Rockstars go in the future? Like, maybe not any direct plans, but like if there's something you would want, maybe like a new vertical to explore, like horror or maybe more sci-fi. Like what's something that you are kind of wanting to scratch the itch of, just to see what happens?
We have these conversations all the time internally at New Rockstars, because we would like to be able to expand and grow and scale, but we're also just very mindful of burnout, and we want to make sure that we still have time outside of New Rockstars to spend time with friends and family and whatever other interests and hobbies we have. But for New Rockstars as a company, I'd really love us to we started to do a thing recently on the break room. We did an episode where the New York Times had like the best movies that have come out since 2000, the best movies of the century so far. And we all of us who work here had our own top 10 picks. And then we compared each other's top 10 picks. And the conversation evolved into kind of just like a really fun, like, just movie recommendation thing. It felt like we were all working at a Blockbuster. It felt like we were in Clerks, and we were just like talking about movies that aren't necessarily what we cover, aren't the superhero movies, not excluding them, but just covering other animated and horror titles. And I would love if we could kind of have like a New Rockstars Midnight Society of just like, these are our favorite horror films, and we're all just like, because all of us are kind of, we all have a side to us where we all love horror,
Hmm.
and it's a big part of like who we are. But we all have like different kind of subcategories of tastes within
Yeah.
the broad genre of horror. So I'd love if we could have like, I don't know what it is, if it's just like a podcast or another, maybe even another channel where we're just kind of like sharing our horror recommendations. Because New Rockstars has done a bit of horror on the main channel, but it's never really been quite the right fit. Like we have a lot of our viewers who are like, I won't watch anything scary. Like I
Hmm.
will watch all the nerd fandom stuff. But like if it's something made to be scary, it's not for me.
Yeah.
Um, but so either that, we're trying to do more live events. Like I'd love to do, I really love meeting fans in the real world, and we are all, most of us who work at New Rockstars met each other by doing improv and sketch comedy.
Hmm.
So getting up in front of an audience is always a fun thing to do. It's just kind of hard to figure out like what the right format or medium or setting of it is.
Yeah.
um I'm really loving the more we're doing in podcasting, in the podcasting space. I feel like there's less pressure than there is in YouTube. There's a much bigger audience potentially and discoverability, but with that comes a lot of pressure to play the game of the algorithm, to listen to the demands of the audience. Whereas podcasting, if you can find a way into that space, you can really have potentially a smaller audience, but a more patient audience.
Yeah.
Um, so if we're going to grow those, that's at least for the next year. That's where my mind is at.
That's that's awesome. I love the ambition. I love the scope. Granted, there's a lot of Marvel stuff behind me, and I'm in a Marvel shirt, but I am an egregious horror fan. I have like my Universal monsters in the corner here. I got my slashers over here. I absolutely love horror. So if there's ever a vertical with things like that, that would be so exciting. Like I love that. I could only wish
So
I
we'll
could
see.
conversations like that's so cool if it happens, because
There's already so many good horror YouTubers on there.
there
And so
really are.
I don't think there's anything we can do better than channels like Dead Meat,
Oh
like I
yeah,
love all of their content.
same.
But I do think there's like the New Rockstars take,
Hmm.
there's, the hosts who are on New Rockstars in the break room. We have our own unique take and our own unique stories and perspectives that you don't necessarily see reflected everywhere else. That I don't know, maybe there's like something we could contribute to the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you said it yourself. There's so many different subgenres of horror fan out there, and I feel like that's the one thing that isn't talked about a lot. And New Rockstars being such a genre-focused channel, that would be pretty cool. I mean, exploring, I like creature features or I like possession
Yeah.
movies. Like that's
Uh-huh.
something that I think a lot of people would gravitate towards. I know I would because I personally love creature features and I love a monster movie. So I'm always looking for the next recommendation. It could be a random 80s cheesy horror movie, and I've seen quite a few, but it could be a random one that I didn't know existed about, like, I don't know, a killer worm that isn't Tremors, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I do think that there is definitely a space for that. Because, I think horror is on the up and up. It's kind of like going the way of video game movies right now. It may not have the biggest franchise following, but with things like Alien, Predator, Halloween, people are Terrifier especially, like people are slowly starting to gain interest again. And I think you're right. It's just about finding that angle, because Dead Meat is another channel I watch as much as you guys. Absolutely love those guys. Saw them at Epic. Couldn't work up the strength to talk to them, but I love them and I love their channel. So, there's a way, I'm sure, that it could happen. If it does happen, if it doesn't, you guys are still doing great stuff, and that's the important
Yeah. My thing is like, I think more than anything, I just want to be able to still work with everybody I'm currently working with.
part. Yeah,
Like
definitely.
my fear is that there's so many great channels out there that due to trying to grow too fast or trying to do too many things at once,
Hmm.
or trying to just experiment too much, have really just kind of like let go of what made them great to begin with and have lost that.
Yeah,
And people have burnt out, or people have lost their minds, or like they've had to live up to like unrealistic profitability goals, and then they get shut down
yeah,
or they go out of business. And because this is a hard business, there's no guarantees, there's no models for anything.
yeah,
And people have tried to apply business models to things that like were never going to be that profitable to begin with.
yeah.
um like it's like, you know John Taffer doing a bar rescue and going to every bar and saying, all right, so what's your scale model? Are you going to have 10 more restaurants next year? I think like you should look at a YouTube channel and be like, hey, how can we make this wonderful thing just last as long as we can? And just keep this party going. You know, I'm of the mindset of like, I don't want to grow that much. I just like, I want to keep this party going because I love who I work with, and it's nice. And I want to just see if we can make it go. I think New Rockstars, there have been past eras of New Rockstars where we tried to grow too much too fast, and it didn't make sense, and it didn't work for us, and we nearly lost it all. So I'm still in this mindset of like, okay, let's just see if we can keep this going. Yeah. And I know we have a good thing. I know we have a great team here, and we've been lucky to have a certain amount of success. And I just want to like keep that sustainable as much as we can.
You know, you guys are building the bridges as you're walking on them. And the best part is other people, up and coming people, are walking on that bridge that you've built. So I think you're on the right track with, you know, making sure things are solid before taking another step, working within your means. That's the stuff. That's the things that make success. Like you said yourself, consistency. And I for one, am very thankful that you're focused on making sure everyone is having a good time and you're having a good time and everyone's doing their thing. Erik, this has been a blast, and I am so happy to have done it. I hope that, you know, and if you had any other openings in your schedule, we can do this again in the future, nerd out about some other stuff, because I really had such a great time, and I hope you did as well. But yeah, no, thank you for chatting with us, giving people a deeper insight into New Rockstars. I'm sure there's a lot of fans that are going to be very excited to hear this.
Yeah, Nick, it was so great chatting with you. I'm sorry that my answers went so long.
No.
I feel like I overdid the assignment of answering a question, and I turned the answer into something that was just like often incomprehensible and unusable. But I loved being able to chat with you, and I'm sorry that I hogged too much of the airtime. If anything, I wish I asked you more questions, and I'm sorry. Hey, next time I want to ask you questions.
We can do that next time. I'm totally okay with that. I personally loved your answers. I'm here to talk to you. I'm here to give you the stage. And so to me, if you thought you took up all of the time, I think you made the best of the time. So don't feel bad about that. And hey, you want to ask me questions? I am down whenever you're ready. We can chat. I've always wanted to be interviewed, so that sounds fun. But yeah, you know, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Erik, for stopping by. And yeah, you guys stay safe out there and keep listening to some good stuff, because I got more good stuff coming.